Hi, welcome back to A-Frame Woodworking. Got a quick episode for you today. I'm going to show you how to dress up the end of plywood using the Kreg Pocket Hole System. This is a pretty simple technique if you got the Kreg system. It adds a nice piece of hardwood on the edge of our plywood. It doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't take a lot of materials. The next step was to rip a piece of hardwood. I'm using oak, so I had some oak scraps to match. One of the things that I have the advantage here in the shop is I have a planer. So I was able to plane this down to the correct size for my plywood. If you don't have a planer, if you're using 3/4 inch plywood, you can take a normal piece of 3/4 inch board that you'd find at your local Home Depot or Lowe's, rip it down to the proper size, and then you'll have to do a little bit of hand planing or sanding, depending on what your shop setup is, to get this down to the correct thickness. So the next step is I'm going to cut my edge band piece over at the miter saw to the correct length. Once you have your edge strip cut to length, go ahead and mark where you want your pocket holes to go. I put one about every foot. Depending on your needs for the project, you can space them a little bit closer, a little bit further away. For this 3/4 inch band, 4 to 5 pocket holes in the bottom of this plywood will work just fine. Alright, before we go ahead and drill those pocket holes, we want to double check our bit setting. There's a collar on your drill bit and the guide on the side of the Kreg jig. We want to make sure that that's set up for 3/4 of an inch. And then the other thing I want to do is make sure this part of my jig is set up for 3/4 of an inch because we're using 3/4 of an inch plywood. Then go ahead and chuck this into your favorite drill, and then I'll show you how to set this up to drill the holes. Alright, I've gone ahead and put my pencil marks on my piece of plywood and then clamp it into position. Should be nice and snug. You can also put material on this side of the plywood to secure it. Go ahead and take your drill with your drill bit in place. Go ahead and drill those pocket holes. As you can see, I got my pocket holes drilled. It doesn't take long to do this. If you want to add a little bit more durability, now would be a good time to put a bead of glue on the edge. Again, you'll be able to see what we're dressing up here. I'm trying to dress up this edge of the plywood because this is what you're going to see when you walk into the closet. We're going to put this hardwood edge on it. Same species of material, so that should look really nice. Again, this is the bottom, so when we test fit and make sure this is flush, we want to make sure it's flush with the side that's now down. We're going to take this in baby steps. A couple of clamps will come in handy. This little jig I got, this little clamp I got from Rockler, fits right in the pocket holes. I like to do this one at the beginning, just to give me a good starting point. It actually slides into the pocket. You can clamp that down, and I'm going to just feel underneath and make sure I get that first edge flush with the outside edge and flush with the underside. Then I'm going to use some longer clamps for each of the pocket holes after that. So I'm going to line that one up with the next pocket. Again, I'm feeling underneath the board to try and make that edge as flush as possible. It'll reduce our cleanup after we're done. And since I'm using oak, I'm using 1¼ inch fine thread Kreg screws. Just got the last screw in there, taking off my clamps. I tell you, I really like using the Kreg pocket system. I'm always coming up with new ways to use it. And as you can see, it makes a pretty nice, clean finish and a nice edge band on there. It doesn't take a lot of time. That's what I like about the Kreg pocket screws and pocket hole system. Now, you will have a little bit of cleanup to do here. You could route these edges. You could put a decorative edge on there. You could route a round over on there. I do have a couple high spots on the edge banding. This isn't the highest grade plywood. This is just from a home center, so it's got a very thin veneer on the top. So you could sand it. You could use a power sander, but be very careful not to go down through the veneer. You could use about 150 grit on just a flat piece of scrap wood to keep that edge nice and flat. Or if you have these in your shop, I find that this is usually the best way to get that, is just a card scraper. And just find your high spots and do a little bit of scraping. So if I have a high spot, just come in here with the card scraper. Well, that completes this project here for tonight in the shop. I got a couple more of these to put together, clean up my edges with my scraper and sandpaper, get them ready for stain and finish, and then I can finish the install. Hopefully you've learned another trick with the Kreg Pocket Hole System and another trick here from A-Frame Woodworking. As always, thanks for watching. Happy woodworking.